Dimp Digital presents Idle Game Chat.
Cool.
Hello, Apps here from Dimp Digital. Welcome to Idle Game Chat. This is the weekly video games podcast where we give our impressions of the games that you can play today and react to the latest news from the wonderful world of video games. We are here every Monday on your favourite podcast app and YouTube, absolutely free. This week, I'm joined once again by our resident referee. It's Logan. How's it going?
Yeah, getting drafted in with seeming semi-regularity.
Alarming.
It is alarming, yeah. I mean, the bottom of the barrel is getting scraped at an annoyingly regular occurrence.
Well, unsurprisingly, Adkins is back in rehab. He's had another lapse in the program we put him through. People were querying where the booze up was this year, and we spent it on his program, and he's flushed it away 4 weeks after going into it. So no beer for the Dimp crowd, and certainly no beer for him for the foreseeable future because it's a bit moreish, it seems.
Well, it looks like we're going to have to put him on some sort of incentivised program where if he keeps falling into relapse, then he gets punished.
Well, they say don't punish him. It's like with this puppy. When I've been bringing that up, they say don't punish it. Tell it when it's doing good, and then it will learn. But I'm not convinced. I think sometimes they need a good slap.
I think both. Wow. Then you know what you're doing wrong and what you're doing well. You have to be. It's like these kids. If you don't tell them when they're wrong, then they'll never know.
No, they won't, and that's not what
backhand.
Cut your nails before you do that. Now, your little intro is resident referee because, as we discussed many weeks back, we sort of brought it up and said you hadn't won anything.
No,
but this is sort of will pose itself as a little small update to the Fantasy Gaming League. You're in the Grand Prix, which is the Open Championship. 8 others compete. Is it 8 or 6? Can't remember now. I think it's 6, isn't there?
6, isn't it?
6 others, sorry. 10 games, all unique games, no crossover in that championship. You are sitting in the clubhouse of the lead. So Parky was first over the line 2-3 weeks ago. Scored himself a respectable 796 it is now. It's gone down since then, but that's what he's at now. You've come along in the last week or so, topped his clubhouse score, and you're currently sitting on 800, so a 4-point gap. You do have less subs, though, so you would win the tiebreaker should it go down to that. Adkins sitting on 708, so he's 92 off. And then we've got Paper on 703, who, he's got to get a 97 off his last game. But all going well. We will be speaking about Adkins' last game, which is Halo Infinite, later on. You could be sitting in the hot seat next year taking on someone else, depending on whether Biff retains his title or flushes it away to the rudderless coalition that actually doesn't have as a leader anymore. So we have to figure that out. But how are you feeling? This is a good place to be. Although you've been here before several times and it's been snatched away through some technicality or, game just stinging you out of the water. So you can't be too confident going to this the run-in, as they'll call it on Sky Sports.
I'm concerned that my 30-odd years supporting Tottenham has come to not only, represent my sporting failures, but actually my life.
Well documented.
It's like ingrained snatching defeat from the jaws of victory.
It's DNA. It's just built into you lot.
Yeah, and as you say, I've always felt a bit like I get unfairly criticised or represented poorly in the Fantasy Gaming League. I sort of get sneered upon a bit because I don't have that quiz pedigree that some of the others have, perhaps. But I do put the time in every year to actually make sensible picks. Ones that I think, and there is some element of thought that goes into it. It's not just me, as I've jested before, saying that I just chuck a load of games out there and point a finger at it and then pick it. So yeah, I had a bit of a, I've joked in the group that I had a bit of a strategy this year, which was a feet up strategy. But it clearly losing 5 points every time you do a transfer is not what you want.
No.
I thought at the start of this year, if I get a load of games that I want, that I'm pretty sure would be coming out, then
front load it.
Front load it, and then that puts you at an advantage from two perspectives. But
puts the pressure on the others as well, because they're like, "Cool, I've had 4 delays. He's had none, and he's already steaming away with it."
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not. The idea isn't to have mind games. Really, it's just for 2 reasons: one, to incur less subs, and 2, to be a bit lazy.
Yeah,
you could just pick it and then not have to worry about these transfer windows, scrabbling around through who's going to pick what and whatnot. So, but yeah, it's gone. I mean, I must be honest. I thought it was feet up, a week or so ago, but that Battlefield score has really hurt me.
Yeah, it's tumbling. That's the thing. It's gone from an 82, and last time I checked, just before this recording, it was a 69. So it's cyberpunk-esque when that hit a 91. The lucky thing for Chappers last year, the webmaster, was that happened 3 days before the season ended. So he banked the 91, and it ended up dropping down to a 70-odd. Had that happened, Adkins would have been sitting in the hot seat instead of him. So there's a concern. Yeah. But all the scores seem moving. The last week, I checked Parky's, that had gone down 3 points. Adkins had lost another point off Vanguard. I don't know what's happening with these multiplayer games, but the reviewers are taking a bit longer to damn them, and they're slowly dropping down bit by bit.
I mean, I must admit, when I saw that Battlefield score, I was a bit surprised at it.
82.
Yeah, based on what I'd heard and seen from when it went live, I'm surprised actually. But then I thought to myself, well, if it's got an 82 in this state, then surely, it will only go up as they tweak it. But it's actually a lot of people, obviously a load more reviews have come in, and they've, giving it 6 or 7s, which has really hurt the average. But yeah, I mean, I'm fingers crossed I can see it out, but I think it depends, obviously, on Halo. I think, and that could be a really big scoring game.
It could be. We'll have to see. I think, what's it, December 8th, I think, is the official campaign release date. So it only gives it 2 days for people to make their minds up. Although, as we'll get to, Phil's done them a favour by letting this multiplayer go out early. So they should be locked and loaded for that opinion. It'll be a case of steamroll through the campaign, judge the package, and then we'll see the scores roll in. I do wonder whether they'll split it out, some people, but we'll see as that goes on. Let's get into it. Start with the game jar. So this is where we discuss the gaming industry, some of the news, sometimes one item, sometimes 2, sometimes 3, sometimes a whole episode full of it. Depends how long we waffle. But what I've been doing is trying to look at where the noise has been. There's always noise in this industry. People complaining, people celebrating in some rare occasions. That is rare when you actually look at the news. People are always fucking whinging about something. And the biggest noise I saw this past week was not the 20th anniversary of Xbox, which was a celebration. It was not the rumoured and shadow drop of Halo Infinite's multiplayer beta. No. This week, people got to be in their bonnet about the Game Awards 2021. Now, for those that don't know, this is a yearly celebration, is the best way I'll describe it, devised, hosted by the well-respected Jeff Keighley, where for multiple hours, sometime in December, live performances, game reveals, and underpinning this celebration are awards where games are handed out, best of the best this, best that, and ultimately game of the year. And probably outside of E3, and it even might run it close nowadays. We'll see how good this year's one is in terms of reveals and whatnot. But it's one of the big events of the years. Lots of eyeballs, big old knees up. I think last year, they've quoted on Wikipedia, they had like 83 million views in total. And I was like, where are you who are these people? They are broadcasting in China, though, I believe. So that might be...
There's 2 billion.
How we get into India and it inflates our numbers because just the sheer number of people, you only need 0.5% to be laughing. That may be what's happening there. But still, it's a huge event. Usually has some interesting stuff. And the noise this year, I know this happens every year. I don't think it's been to this level though. Is that there's one high-profile omission from the Big Fish Award, which is the Game of the Year. That's the big title one that people who have favourite games and want to back them and carry water for the particular game or studio, they want their game to win that one. So here's the nominees for this year. You've got It Takes Two, Metroid Dread, Psychonauts 2, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Deathloop, and Resident Evil Village. Now, if we use some of the aggregated review sites, which comes with its own issues, to be fair, we always use OpenCritic for the Fantasy Gaming League, etc., etc. The highest rated game of the year is actually missing. And it's not a bonus DLC, it's not a remake, it's not a remaster, it's a brand new release into a well-established franchise. And for those who haven't heard of the noise, that game is Forza Horizon 5. Shunned is what people are saying. They're saying the Game Awards have shunned Forza Horizon 5, they've shunned Xbox, and Playground Games are not getting their roses they deserve. So that's where we're at. Small context for how the nominees are decided. There are, I think, over 100 media outlets, and they've put influencers on the website. This is written on there, but I don't know. I'd consider many of them influencers. Anyway, 100 of them across the world, mostly based in the US, like big guns like IGN, GameSpot, Easy Allies. They're all there. All the main people, Polygon, people you've heard of. And they basically chuck together a list of 5 top choices for the year. They don't rank them. They just give five games that represent their editorial staff. So don't know if that goes to one person. There's no policing it. One bloke might get that and go, I'll put my 5 on there. Who knows? Maybe part of the problem. But that's how they're kind of decided. Whoever gets the most votes in each category will enter this nominees list. Now, I wanted to focus on Forza Horizon 5 because, like I said, the noise was there and the claim is that it's being snubbed because it is, quote unquote, just a racing game. Now, let's work on the assumption that could be correct. What do you make of that? Is that fair enough because it is just a racing game? Or should this jury, this well-esteemed set of media fuckers, be considering all games from all genres, and regardless of whether you consider it just a racing game, perhaps it should be considered for Game of the Year?
Yeah.
Scared him with that one.
I wouldn't say it scared me. The notion that it's just a race, the notion that it's just a racing game shouldn't be cause just to admit it. That being said, I think there is, using an example, right? I always get a little bit of criticism, or everyone sort of sneers down when I pick Football Manager every year for the Fantasy Gaming League. From my perspective, that's an easy 85 plus, pretty much in the bag every year.
Year in, year out.
Year in, year out. It's an easy pick, but no one looks at that and goes, "That is a brilliant game," or "That is it's sneered down upon." I mean, we've joked for years it's spreadsheet simulator. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's an element of I'm going to call it gaming elitism, I think, to certain
snobs.
It is gaming snobbery, right?
Oh,
to certain
he's
genres.
called the whole media snobs.
Not all of them. But then if you said to me, like, say I'd played a load of these games, Forza was there, Football Manager was there, you kind of just expect to get what you get out of it, and you expect to get what you get out of it. And there's nothing there that necessarily makes you go, that is outstanding or new or different, but it's just done really well. And I think that's what Forza Horizon does, is it does that kind of casual driving game piece really well. It looks fantastic. It's got loads of different modes, racing features. It's got the whole lot there. But because they knock it out of the park every time, and I do think there is an element with racing games, although that being said, I think there's a certain snobbery towards Gran Turismo over Forza. Like if you saw that Gran Turismo, you would think, yeah, proper racing game. Yeah. I don't think people think the same thing around Forza Horizon.
I call it Nerd's first car game because it's made for nerds who can't hack it on the real circuits, as I say. And I mean that to be, to goad people. Because you ain't going on those circuits knocking off 10 tenths, per lap. That's where the real racers go. Managing your tyres, all that stuff. This is, I don't want to use the term watered down, but this appeals to a much more widespread audience because although it is advanced in its own kind of area, it's still very simplistic when you compare it to a simulator or a motorsport
100%.
game, which isn't a bad thing. That's just how it is. And that's why I think it's been so popular with players. I mean, it's hit 10 million players this last week. That's insane.
It's super easy to pick up and play. You literally just hold down RT on your, you really have to worry about 2 buttons. Brake, well, 3 really.
You ain't got a brake. You just slam into the side of the other cars and they'll stop you.
Do that.
There's no penalty.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah,
Max Verstappen, come on.
But I think. I mean, I didn't particularly get much out of Horizons 4. I just was
Play 3.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, so I liked 2 and 3. I was a bit sort of bored of it by 4.
You was driving around bloody England, weren't you? Mostly, as I've done this.
Yeah, and this is what I mean. I was like, it's more of the same, and I think to be fair, you could probably level part of the blame at me. I think I played 2 and 3 quite close together, and then 4. By then, 4 was lurking, so I started on that. But I've seen a few clips of it, and you see people driving around and doing what they want to do, and it looks great. And I think from a casual driving perspective, it ticks all the boxes. And if I was going to pick up a driving game, and I like driving in real life. This is the irony that I think you don't particularly
hate
it. You hate driving.
Hate cars. Hate driving. I like motorsport.
But you like motorsport and then simulators for motorsport. Whereas I'm the opposite. Like I like cars and I'll watch Top Gear.
Yeah.
I'm less fussed about motorsport.
Yeah.
But I like more casual driving games. Like I wouldn't want to be dealing with worrying about fuel and tyres and all that sort of stuff. I'd be like, this is an annoying stress. I don't want that. I just want to be able to see how quickly I can get the car that I like around and finish first and then move on to the next race. So I think it does appeal to that audience, but I think it is that element of, because I don't know, sometimes I wonder with games when they're more casual, they lose that gaming elitist kind of...
Ain't considered art.
Yeah. I think, everyone wants to be, in on the latest little thing. And,
trendy hipsters.
Yeah, I think there's an element of that. But I think it's really difficult with a driving game. Going back to the original point, if you gave me a list of 5 games and said, give me your top 5 games... I don't think I would put Football Manager on it. Even though I love that game, it's a great game, it reviewed well, I wouldn't consider that my top game because it's kind of delivered what I expected.
Right.
So it's kind of consistency, I guess, might go against it. I'd pick some other stuff that I'd played. Like, do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, you kind of are punished by fulfilling just the expectations and not...
Yeah.
I don't know what you can do in a racing game or in Forza Horizon's case to make it go to that next level. I mean, it's technically superb. It's solid as all the foundational stuff that you want from a game of the year. Yet people are probably just like, it's another Forza. And it's like, wow.
Yeah, it's exactly that. And everyone, if you're picking up that game and judging it solely on its merits, then, clearly it deserves the score it's got from what I've seen. I don't think anyone's saying that it doesn't deserve it. But when you then... pick up other things that have brought, genres on or, really hit home with a really hard-hitting narrative or, do you know what I mean? When you get those games that might affect you more emotionally or you deem more artistic, then you're going to put that above certain, something like a Forza.
It kind of gets trapped in that category, like you mentioned about Football Manager, but also like the sports game category where they offer... usually pretty good experiences in a simulation of X sport, well put together and whatnot. But they're just sort of, you've done that. Like you're representing something that we deem fairly easy. And you mentioned about it, be it trying to move genres on or having a really good narrative to grip people in. But what I would say is this year has been, not that great. Like so the nominees there are good, are really good games. All of them, all 6 of them. I've played all 6 of them I think it's the first time it's ever happened. Yeah, I wouldn't say any of those would beat anything from the last 4 or 5 years. So we haven't had
When you
that.
reeled that list off, I thought that's there's nothing exceptional there.
No.
Put it that way. I think there's
No.
nothing that's like a God of War and years. Do you know what I mean? It's just good games.
Yeah.
And even then,
Forza's
an
struggled.
exceptionally even then it's struggling. But I think you could probably say, Football Manager again scored really well this year.
Yeah.
It's never going to get on that list.
Nope.
Because it's not in the appetite of those influencers to declare those sort of games, their game of the year. I think that's probably what it boils down to.
No, I mean, Football Manager itself is criminally underrated. It never makes the best sports game or racing game category. Never makes the best sim or strategy game. You could argue it could fall into either of those. It is a strategy game. You're compiling together a team of footballers based on stats and attributes and whatnot.
The simulation piece, I just think I don't understand. It's so in depth. If you want to get into it, like it blows my mind that. But then chances are a lot of these people that are into games going to be that interested in football or soccer. And it's from the US. They're not. It's just not going to fall on the radar. But with I don't want to detract too much. But the similarities are there in terms of I guess the answer is just because it reviews well doesn't mean it's going to be on people's list for what they'd consider to be, or the most people to consider it to be their game of the year.
No, I've seen people say, well, it's the highest scoring game, so it should be on there. And people have to understand that the way this is polled, like I explained earlier, it's supposed to represent the outlet as a whole. So there's meant to, I guess, have a meeting and go 5 games. We'll discuss between the 20 of us. We'll decide what these 5 games are. The review scores is one person that gave that score. So Jim from IGN gives it a 10 out of 10. That's just his viewpoint. It doesn't represent the dozens of others that are on the editorial team. So it doesn't always work like that. But you mentioned Football Manager is a good case as to why that's never been on there and why it's not even considered for other categories, which it clearly falls into. And I was thinking, well, why is this one create all the noise? Because there's a lot of crying about this. Like, you wouldn't believe, Logan, some of the circles I follow. I was like, on one hand, these cunts say they don't care about reviews and what the outlets have got to say. And then when there's an award ceremony created to decide what the outlets and media deem the best game, they go, wah! Well, because it's got a lot of eyeballs, maybe they deem the show important. But I do have a theory. I think that, look, it's an Xbox exclusive.
I didn't want to say that.
I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
And here we go. They're competitive. They're doing well at the moment. They had an awful generation, the Xbox One. Can't deny that. Barely got out the fucking traps when it come to getting a game for Game of the Year. Don't fucking make me laugh. And this was a chance, on a weak year, which we've said earlier, to get some sort of recognition for one of their favourite franchises. The noise has been deafening. Now, let's look back for the past 5 years quickly. I'm going to list off a few games from each year that didn't get nominated but scored higher than many other games that were nominated on the list. So this has been happening all the way through. And you'll notice that none of these games are exclusives on either side, so the noise didn't come with it. 2020, Half-Life Alyx and Crusader Kings 3. Again, Crusader Kings 3 is a sim strategy game, snubbed, perhaps because of the genre. Disco Elysium 2019. Fire Emblem Three Houses. That's a Nintendo game. Now, normally, you get the halls of society going mad about that. No real noise about that. 2018, Return of the Obra Dinn. 2017, Divinity Original Sin 2. Hollow Knight, Nier Automata. 2016, Dark Souls 3, Civilization 6. These are all games that scored higher than the nominees that were listed by at least 1 or 2 and were snubbed out of it. No real uproar. We get this one Forza game and people are going mental. I think these console wars are bubbled up again. I've been saying it. On those little Jonathan Pye-like videos I done on YouTube, a couple of them, I said it twice because I could feel it. And it's part of it Sony fans, boys, getting scared that now, Phil's coming for them. And the other one is now that the Xbox fans are rejuvenated because they're having a good time. They've got Game Pass, you can't question the value of that. and now the games are coming. Starfield next year. It's all looking roses. That's what I think's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably fair to say that with a lot of the games that have been released across the PS4 era and how good those single player... I think we spoke about this last time, didn't we? Where we said they've kind of been the king of that single player story narrative kind of game. And they will typically get better... I wouldn't say better reviews, but better endorsement from reviewers because they're more popular. I mean, using you as an example, you're into that. Like, you much prefer like that single player experience. And I think you would say you'd definitely enjoy something like that over rotting on Halo Infinite for 10 hours, for example. And you would put, yeah, exactly. So there's definitely a train of thought. And I think it's probably more prevalent within the gaming industry that these sorts of games are put above, you know, the multiplayer experiences or sim experiences, whatever. I think that's definitely the case.
Yeah, I think the outlier was 2016. I think Overwatch won it, and that was a multiplayer only game. That's probably the only one that's been like that. But you know, I was talking about the console wars bubbling up before. Also, I omitted these two games on purpose just to drive that point home, but I think this further reinforces it. 2016, Forza Horizon 3 was snubbed. I think that was like the fourth top scoring game according to OpenCritic. No real noise there. And arguably that's the one where I felt like it broke through. That's when everyone was going, oh, this is a really good series. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. And again, Forza Horizon 4 2018, snubbed out of it, scored well within the top 5 and no noise. But now they've got some bollocks about them. Feels galvanised, these fuckers. They want blood.
And it's possible. I just think, but it's possible that, you know, PS4 had the better games that these sort of guys would have preferred. You know, maybe tides are changing with Game Pass, as you say. Some of the exclusives that Microsoft could have, the games.
Well, they're in a better position than they were year one of the Xbox One.
Yeah, that was diabolical though.
And the future is looking much brighter. Like, it's looking like they can actually have...
It bloody should be with the amount of resource they got behind them. Like, there's no excuse really that they've let Sony have such a free pass at it.
Feet up in it.
But it is interesting. I'm with Forza. I think it's probably less around the fact that there's more noise around it because it's an Xbox game. I just think it's because a lot of people might have played that this year, and it's for whatever reason. I haven't played it. It's, you know, a more standout game perhaps than it has been in previous years. We mentioned the list wasn't as great, and you know, maybe there are more people that feel more of an allegiance to Xbox this time round than they have before.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised about that, but it ain't happening. You know, it can win best sports or racing game, or best sound design. That's what else it's been put in for. Get those cars recorded and bung them out.
Got those exhaust notes right.
I know. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting to hear the noise from it. It was quite a thing to see over the past week. And in some ways, I feel sorry for people, but in other ways, I just think don't worry about it. Like, ultimately this is the game media / influencer award. Like, it's not like DICE or GDC, which is the developers doing it. That to me matters more. Like the people that are making the games, if they as a collective come together and say this one, you think, well, probably there's some merit to that. Whereas this is literally opinion. This is all this is.
It's an interesting way of looking at it, though, because I suppose that then it leads on to the question: is that the right way of doing it? You know, could they do it in a similar way to what we do, which is then go, you know, we've got some, you know, whether you have a category or however you do it, you go, well, we've got aggregated review scores here, and you know, we're going to start giving out some awards to the best reviewed games of the year.
Maybe you do that, or maybe you just automatically nominate the top score of the year. That goes in without fail. Maybe something like that, because that's how it would have got in. Or I think what would help is if they did have some input from developers or publishers, some like industry people that have got hands on with the game. So rather than it being, I think the actual split when it comes to doing the actual award is 90% will be media driven and 10% will be fan driven. It's not going to make much of a difference what the Forza fans do. But if they did something like perhaps the ballot went out 40% weighted for media, 40% for developers, 20% for fans. Then you've kind of got a mixture of all the parties that will probably be interested in this. And I think you shouldn't have the fans equal because they can't be trusted.
No, I was going to say.
They absolutely... They can't be trusted to be doing things.
Some people are too emotionally involved with certain franchises. If it's a load of old garbage, they'll still love it because it's certain.
Yeah, and it transcends gaming because I remember that time when I think there was X Factor was going to be Christmas #1. Campaign got set up on the internet to get Rage Against the Machine in.
Yeah.
Just things like that will happen.
People start voting for stupid games or whatever. And it'll just make a mockery of it. I know.
Give them a little bit of a say.
It would be interesting to then. I think there's an argument that there could probably be a better pool of games in there because there are people that would probably, or certain development studios that would probably really appreciate an award like that. They work their arse off to produce a game that doesn't ever get recognised.
No,
just because they're not in a certain category or producing a certain type of game.
No. Well, look, my view is a marketing show anyway. First, it's marketing. Second, it's entertainment. Thirdly, it's an awards show. And
I do wonder whether some like a mates club or whatever it is, or certain people have certain allegiances to certain studios and all that kind of stuff. Whether any of that comes into play,
never know.
You
never know. Well, that's that. Unfortunately, there is. I think it's a Player's Voice Award, so it could get that. I feel like this year it'll get that just to stick one up at the Game Awards. But you didn't even nominate us. Now we're going to put this on. Although is it eligible? If it's not been, I don't know. We'll find out. But the actual show, I think, is December the 8th. No, 9th. Thursday, December the 9th. Actually, it'll be the 10th for us. It'll be silly o'clock in the morning Friday. But probably report back to Won and Lost that just as something to talk about that week because it tends to slow down. Let's move on. Xbox managed to celebrate their 20th anniversary. Now, we alluded on the last week's podcast that Halo Infinite might drop on the Monday, the day we released it. Turns out that was true. Halo Infinite multiplayer beta went live. Open and free to all players. So no early access bollocks required, no Game Pass required. Download and play it, Big Phil said. He said, get out there and do it. Before we get into that, because I know you've played a fair bit of it, considering it was their 20th anniversary, can you remember what your first memory of Xbox was? Whether it was going around someone's house or perhaps having a go of it in one of the shops? Because I have a vivid memory of mine, and it wasn't an impressive one.
Yeah, I had an original Xbox.
Christ!
Yeah, I did. I think I've still got it somewhere.
Here's the fanboys we've been talking about. Fuck me.
I didn't ever really play it that much. One of my dad's friends actually had it, and I think he moved away or something, and he said he didn't want it. Does Chris want it? And I was like, well, yeah, go on then. I'll absolutely have that. So I played a little bit of that, but really, I don't really remember too much about it. It was because I was always PlayStation, so I think I looked down on that as a little bit of a downgrade anyway. So I was like, oh, what's this? It's not my PlayStation, so why should I be interested in this? So really, and I remember my first proper memory of going back to it was when I went to uni, and it was a choice between the PS3 or the 360.
Yeah.
And I remember having a discussion with one of my flatmates at the time, and he was full in on the Xbox. And I remember being like, nah, don't want that. But I was like, PlayStation, surely. Like, I was always a PlayStation kind of guy. But he ended up just buying a 360.
And that was that.
And that was that. And yeah, it was, really, it was that was the start of Pro Evo at uni. So that was the main thing we got it for. But, the first proper game that I then played on the 360 was Crackdown.
Yeah.
I think, like, single player experience. And that kicked off, the next, 15 years of love for Microsoft over Sony, really.
Yeah, they kicked it off well. Yeah, I remember I went round Steve Christian's house and he had an Xbox. I had the same as you, I had a PS2 at the time. Didn't really. I used to play a lot of games, but wasn't really like into. I was like Xbox, like Dreamcast. I'd gone off Sega by that point. I was like, oh, not interested in that. But anyway, I went round there. I remember he had Halo on of all things, and he gave me this fucking great big controller. I was like, what is this? I was like, Steve, what is this? He's like, that's the controller. Yeah. And I was like, are you joking? And he was like, no. Anyway, I played about 15 minutes of it. I could not get to grips with it. I couldn't work out how it worked. I couldn't just fathom this ginormous thing. And I was like, what a load of shit that is.
That was the one that's like shaped like a trident, wasn't it?
Shoot, yeah. The original Duke controller, it must have been. Anyway, awful first experience. Like, see you later, Xbox. And then 360 came out. Didn't really jump at that. Still had the PS2. It's like, well, I've got to wait a year for the PS3. Came out a year later. Eye-watering price. I think it was £500 or £600.
It's so disgraceful, wasn't it? Yeah.
Right, no chance. Then by that point, people have had the 360 and was like, yeah, Gears of War's good. Forza Horizon, Forza Motorsport 2, I think it was, is really good. Jump on it. Halo 3's coming soon. Yada, yada, yada. And it was like, I think it was £280 that I got it for, which was, I thought, compared to what fucking, wasn't Jim at the time, but it's just for the sake of argument, old Jim Ryan was asking for. I was like, that is diabolical. So I got one of those and then never got a PS3. I borrowed one at the end of the generation and then they let me down with the Xbox One. But yeah, that was kind of where I got into it. But again, the 360 felt like the height, the peak.
That really kicked off multiplayer gaming as well, I think, that 360. Like casual multiplayer gaming.
That
I think.
Combined with Modern Warfare, COD 4, when that came along, that was the Dreamboat combination. It was like, cool, Xbox Live and this incredible multiplayer game that was like nothing we'd played before.
Yeah, I think that... I don't think it would have kicked... For some reason in my head, I don't think it was ever... I always saw that as like an Xbox thing, like party gaming, over the internet. I never saw that as a PlayStation-y thing. I don't know why.
Because their network wasn't up to it for a long time.
No, it was always... I remember it being sneered upon, like the reliability of Xbox's network was just way and above. I think even like the party chat quality, which actually when you go back to listen to it was diabolical. But yeah, and I forgot about the price difference. I'm pretty sure, obviously, that there was the delay. So I think we were talking about waiting for the PlayStation 3, and then I think I was doing a bit of research into it, and it was the cost differential and the fact that the 360s were available that made us go for that in the end.
Yeah, it wasn't a hard decision. But there you go. Well, they kicked off actually ended the celebration of 20 years of Xbox with the shadow drop of Halo Infinite. Last week I was kind of like, if they did do it, I'd be like, come on, why don't you just tell us in front of time, like, just get me prepared, blah, blah, blah. Having lived through it was actually quite cool watching that thing, and then for them to say, go and download it now, going away, downloading it and playing it that night, that was a cool experience, so perhaps that was the right thing to do, absolutely. I had no technical issues on my side in terms of networks or things like that, but I've not played a great deal of it, probably 3 hours tops. I was so bad. I played it on PC. I'm going to have to switch to controller. The mouse and keyboard is not working out for me. But I'm going to shut up now because I know that you've played a fair bit of Halo Infinite. So what's your thoughts? Because previously you'd played a tiny bit of the in-flight test against the bots, and the feedback was didn't feel like a major departure from Halo 5, at least mechanically. But now that you've delved into it a bit more and had some time with real players, do you still stand by that statement, or are we looking at something that's quite a big change and a positive thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think from memory of what I played of Halo 5, you know, it's what you expect from a Halo game in terms of mechanics and how the gunplay works. Like, none of that's a surprise. So that's, you know, all there. It looks like they've built that out with some, you know, pretty cool power weapons. I think, you know, historically it was limited to just kind of a few. You know, you had the melee, the sniper, the rocket launcher, but they've built that out. It feels like they've built that out a little bit and added a few other different cool weapons, which is a nice bit of variety. And I don't know whether it's something that I just haven't explored before, but they've added this kind of new feature where you can pick up dashes, grappling hooks, and all these kind of little things
Grappling
that kind of
weren't there.
No, well, no, I know the grappling hook wasn't, but I didn't play. a whole heap of Halo 5 online when it was released. So I'm
No.
struggling to remember if that was there. So you'll have all the Halo fanboys coming in going, oh,
Wow.
that's always been there. But I don't remember it. So yeah, they've added in, you can pick up shields that provide you with some shield in front of you, some dash, grappling hook, like just to mix up and allow you to change the way you play, whether that's slightly more defensive, more aggressive, which I like. But I guess starting off with the technical side, it's been pretty faultless.
Yeah.
I've had no issues getting into games.
Nope.
The matchmaking seems good. One slight issue we did have the other day, me and Pete went to play a couple of games with Hall, and it looks like they dropped an update pretty much as we were about to do it.
Right.
And then we had a bit of an issue with it looks like the Xbox got the update first over the Steam lot, which is
race binned.
Yeah, which was pleasing to see. Hall didn't like that.
Even with his 60 million speed internet, he couldn't do anything about it.
Couldn't do anything about it, yeah, because it looks like the Xbox boys got it first. So yeah, we updated it, and then we had a slight mismatch, an issue trying to get together because we were on different versions. And even when Hall did download the update, we still couldn't get into the same game. But I think that was a slight, a small sort of window where anomaly. So yeah, I've played it pretty much every day since it dropped.
Damn.
Yeah, it's really good.
Wow.
It's really good. I haven't played a multiplayer game that's actually made me want to play it on my own for some time. Like, I am quite content playing Halo without partying up with anyone.
Nice.
Like,
that's a good sign.
Yeah, and I haven't done that in a multiplayer game for years. I mean, I can't remember the last one that I probably did that with. I mean, I did it with a little bit on Black Ops, but that was Black Ops 4. That is, sorry. Sorry, no, Black Ops Cold War. So the last Black Ops that was there, I played a little bit of that, but I only ever played Nuketown, and it was just for a couple of games here and there. Like, I'm actually playing this because I really like the game, and it's buttery smooth. It's just a great experience, and it's in beta. And I just parallel this to the experience I had in the Battlefield one, and also in the Vanguard one, where I had cheaters galore in there. The Battlefield one was buggy as hell, and then Halo comes along and it goes no issues, buttery smooth gameplay. There's nothing on there that feels ill-balanced or overpowered, particularly. So yeah, it's been a really pleasant surprise getting that dropped early. I mean, I had Battlefield trial downloaded and ready to rock and roll.
Game Pass was that? Yeah, 10 hours.
So I had the 10 hours of that to see what that was all about.
Did you get through 10 hours, or did you shelve it before 10 hours expired?
Honestly, I played. There's like a little initial kind of training mission, and I think I dropped into one game of Conquest, and that's it. And then literally the Halo one dropped, and I was like, well, I would much rather play a Halo game nowadays. I don't know why. I mean, I really enjoyed some of the previous Battlefields, but I've always kind of enjoyed the Battlefield War, World War One, World War Two settings. I think that's what I played Battlefield 4, but I really enjoyed Battlefield 5 and 1 because of that. So I was always slightly less hyped around 2042. And Halo I was always secretly a little bit excited about. But that being said, I was a bit nervous about it because of everything that had happened in the lead up to it. So I was always worried that it was going to drop and be hugely disappointing.
Yeah.
But I was expecting, as I say, to have a bit of playtime of Battlefield in that trial before this dropped in December. Then obviously chucking out a beta, I was like, hello.
Jump straight into that. So it sounds like the other two FPSs in terms of Vanguard and Battlefield that's it now. They're, for your perspective, they've been superseded, and that's the end of it.
Well, I think I played the beta of Vanguard, and when we spoke about it last, I always said that was on the bottom of the list, really, and I didn't think it was offering anything new. I think the cheating problem's still a concern. weapon balancing, the graphics looked outdated. Like, there's a whole range of things in that was probably going to make that a bit of a no-go for me. And I think, from what I've seen from people that have bought it and from some of the, streamers and people that play it, it's not one of their better entries. And I think, sales are hugely down on it as well. And I think there's everything backs up my thoughts on that, is that it's not a particularly great entry for Call of Duty in almost every way. And Battlefield was always a bit of a wild card, I think, in terms of it could be good. They've done some things to bring it on, but I think it was always a bit fanciful to think that could become the go-to first-person shooter. I always kind of had my hopes pinned on this Halo one.
Cool.
But it's exceeded my expectations in terms of how it plays.
Wow.
So yeah, it's and the big team battle on there is great fun. It's not going to be for everyone.
No.
There will be people that prefer those tighter, Halo encounters, but I think it's a really fun way to play Halo.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed that.
Big team battle is definitely the one, because that, like you said earlier, when I play us on my own, which I did the first night, it's always going to be for big team battle, because it's just a bit more chaotic, not less well, it feels like it's less strategic because there's more people, more chaos. Whereas when you're in a team 4v4, if I'm not playing the objective as well as I could get caught out and look real poor. Whereas BTB's just carnage, with the vehicles and the size of the map and the amount of players that are pumped in there.
It's a lot more of a casual experience.
Yeah.
So you can just sort of jump in, mess around, go and get some power weapons, decide to play the objectives, don't play the objectives. I find that it's a less intense experience in a lot of ways, because you're not Halo can be a really intense game. Like I played it, with the other night with P and a couple of others, and we did the 4v4.
Yeah.
And it is intense. Like I come away from it and I was like, cool, I need to lay down now. Whereas you can play big team battle and just sort of, almost feet up and go and do some, play it how you want, whether you want to get on the back of a warthog or go and snipe someone. It allows you to play a little bit more flexibly.
Yeah.
So that's good fun. That's real good fun. But yeah, I don't know whether it's, nowadays playing on a better monitor with a better console and everything, but it just feels really nice.
Good. It's all positive stuff. Now, the one piece of noise, that word keeps coming up, that I've heard during this week, and I've experienced it myself in the short time I played, is progression. This was something that we both flagged weeks ago when they mentioned it's going to be tied to challenges rather than just match on match kills and whatnot. It's tied to doing specific things, and we kind of said they can mitigate that by making the challenges sensible, introducing real low level ones like just participation challenges, etc. But I have heard and seen when people have showed me their challenge log for the next match where it's something ridiculous like blow 3 people up on warthogs, and it's like, and it's caused people to play the game outside of the objectives in some cases because they're chasing challenge XP and leveling up. Accurate or not?
Yeah, it is.
They've chucked it almost. Well, not chucked it, but that's the negative. It seems like it's popping up consistently.
Yeah. I mean, I still don't understand the mentality. There's nothing. I was hoping that when I played it, I could go, right, okay, that I now understand why they've done it this way, but I still don't.
No.
I don't understand.
There's no master plan, was there?
It doesn't seem that way. It really doesn't. I mean, they have adjusted it based on feedback slightly.
Yeah.
So, for example, you've got a daily challenge which appears to continually reset, where you get XP just for completing a game.
Yeah.
So you get a small amount of XP for doing that, but it really is, tied to those weekly challenges. You need to be doing them to progress through the battle pass. I mean, as I said to you before, I've played it, every day basically since it's been released, and I'm on battle pass level 4. It's to your point, I'm now at a point where I've got some of these challenges where I'm going, I need to, one of them's, take out 5 ghosts, which is, a ship. So I've literally got to go out of my way now.
Yeah.
Because most of the time I'd ignore them because they're a pain in the ass to try and
you
kill.
start picking a fight with them, unless you catch them cold, you're likely to get blown away.
And I am.
Yeah.
And I was literally thinking, right, okay, so I'm going to have to go out of my way to go and get a specific power weapon on the map to hold and hope I don't get killed to a point when I see a ghost and then actively engage it and not get killed. Like it is difficult, and it also makes you play certain game modes that you might not want to play.
Yeah.
And things like that. So, I get the idea behind it, but I still think it should be over. If you want to do those challenges and get extra rewards, then that's fine. But Adkins made a point of, doing damage to people and, getting in there and stealing kills. And I said to him, it doesn't make any difference, Tom.
No.
You don't get any points for it. You literally, in the game you do, but if you haven't got a challenge outside of the game, once your points are done with, you say you finish top of the leaderboard, it goes good. It doesn't make any difference to your overall progression through that battle pass. So yeah, it is. I'd still really like them to renege on that and go back to a standard XP model with the challenges that supplement that.
Yeah. Have you bought the battle pass or?
Yeah. I did it.
How much is it? Because I had a look, and I couldn't work it out because it does that currency bollocks, and I was like, right, I can't understand.
I think it's £7.19.
Right,
I think it was.
It runs to May, doesn't it? 2022 season 1. I mean, that seems. In my head, that seems long. I don't know if that's typically long for.
I think the Rocket League pass usually runs for 3 to 4 months. So to run for 6 months is a long time. But I was thinking about it, and at the rate of this progression,
you might need May.
6 months. Well, it's going to take that long. So yeah, it's baffling. The only thing I can think of that would play into it, and I think we discussed this when we kicked the can on it a couple of weeks back, was that it's to incentivize people to buy these challenge skips.
Right. Yeah, you mentioned those.
Yeah, that's the only. They've got to make money out of it. That's obvious.
Yeah.
So the only reason I can think that they've done it this way is to get people to buy these challenge skips so that they can try and progress through the battle pass. You get a couple as you go through the battle pass, but it's not loads. It's not loads. And yeah, it's some of them for some people I can tell would be a bit of an annoyance to try and get through.
What do you get in the battle pass exactly? Because I haven't got it. I just see I've got a load of challenges to do and I level up. Am I just not eligible for certain unlocks, and do I miss out on extra challenges per match that I could be getting? Is it that sort of deal?
Actually, yeah. So I'm pretty sure you get kind of premium challenges with the battle pass.
Yeah.
So you get
should
more
in theory be easier.
Yeah, for you to level up, and obviously you can get, once you've bought the battle pass, you get extra customizables and things like that. So it is, it doesn't make any difference to the gameplay.
No,
it's purely cosmetic, which is fine. But yeah, I still don't get it, and the progress is frustratingly slow, and it is frustrating knowing that even if you've had a good game where you've got a shitload of kills and done all that stuff, unless you killed someone with a certain gun, it makes no difference. That's another thing that I've found myself doing, is picking up certain guns.
This is all stuff we said weeks ago, so they better not be doing this, because it takes you out of your natural.
It does completely, and you find yourself doing it because you think, I need to tick off some of these. And I really, and to be fair, I thought Call of Duty on Black Ops did it quite well, which was, it's pretty. They give out they allow you to swap a certain amount of challenges for free. The challenges aren't hugely prohibitive. Obviously, you've got some of them which are really easy, which you get a little bit less XP for, and then you've got some of them which are a little harder. So you kind of get the flexibility to choose, but they don't make it so onerous. And I thought Call of Duty actually did that side of a battle pass progression and challenges really well. And I really don't understand. I'd love someone from 343 to come and go, this is why we think this is better for a player. Like, because I don't
I bet
think
what
it is
it'll do
better
is
for
they'll
a
show you a
player.
spreadsheet of all the microtransactions they've sold, and there's the reason.
Well, yeah, but I'd rather them come out and say, do you know what I mean? I'd rather them come out and say, look, we're giving you the game for free.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're doing it through challenges so that we can make a bit of money back. You don't have to, but if you do, you do. If you don't, you don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really baffling decision, and I really hope they do. They seem to be saying that they're open to feedback, and I'm pretty sure if they say they're open to feedback, you know, they're gonna hear it, and the feedback I would expect to be
It
overwhelmingly.
seems to be unanimous. Like everyone, even like the
Yeah.
biggest fans, say it's the most fun I've had in ages. But that progression is killing me. And
Yeah, it's exactly that. It is. It's really good. It could be one of those, you know, multiplayer games that sticks around for a long time. And a lot of people nowadays, the problem is with multiplayer, a lot of people go, oh, but it's not got a battle royale. Like, that appears to be like the multiplayer experience that people want to have, as well as, you know, PvP. I just wonder whether that might lose them some audience over a period of time if they don't address that.
I suspect they'll come up with something like a mode.
Well, it's been rumoured for a long time that Halo were working on their own battle royale. Whether they are or not, I don't know. I would love them to. I think it'd be, you know, an interesting way to play Halo. I think it's almost, you know, built for that in the way that they've got the different heights and things and terrains on the maps. I think they build the maps really well, vehicles, the whole lot. It almost plays into that genre. But even just playing the big team battle and the standard multiplayer has been a really enjoyable experience. And I think a lot of the, you know, everyone pretty much, to your point, unanimously that's played it has said this is excellent. This is really good. I really hope they just do something with that progression.
Yeah, so just to wrap it up, let's say they don't address the progression as well as they could do, and it's still a different flavour of the same issues you're running into. Is there a time where you feel like people will get fed up and move on and be like, I can't be bothered to do this? Or you feel like they've captured the audience enough that actually they could just keep resisting and not making the changes? Or will there be a point where it's like, you know, people will just start going to something else potentially?
Well, I'll be honest. I think that, you know, they hold all the aces in terms of what's out there. I mean, I think the fact that Vanguard's been such a flop and that Battlefield as well, it has. Like, in terms of where they're usually at, Battlefield and Call of Duty, they're way below where they usually are. You know, and Halo's come along. For a lot of people, I think, had low expectations, or at least lower expectations than perhaps they previously would. And it feels to me like they've knocked it out, or they've knocked the experience out the park.
Yeah.
So they, you know, I think there'll be more people wanting to play this on top of the fact it's free and no one has to shell any money out for it. It feels like they could dig their heels in with it and go, if you want to play this great game, you know, piss off and go and play Call of Duty Vanguard with those hackers if you want. Do you know what I mean? I think that they do hold the cards, but I think they've already made some changes to that battle pass. I would be surprised if they don't make some more. Even if they don't give people specific XP per kill, per assist kind of thing, per capture, I think they'll do something within the battle pass to make it slightly easier. I've never played a game this long and only been level 4 in the battle pass. I mean, I think I've played a lot less Rocket League, and I think I'm on level 13 of their latest.
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
Well, it's interesting how multiplayer's evolved, really, because at one point there was no progression, really. You know, going back to Halo 3, I don't remember there being progression there. COD 4 come along and went and was like, cool, what's this? Leveling up prestige in. And obviously as it's evolved into free to play, it's become part of seasons and whatnot. But there was a time when that wasn't a requirement. You just play for the fun of it.
The thing is, you would be playing to level up, to get your next badge, to do this, to get unlock guns. I mean, obviously with Halo, you don't have anything, you know, to unlock, progress. There's nothing to unlock. No. So everything is through cosmetics. So to then remove any kind of incentive or aim to progress and do it through this incredibly slow battle pass is frustrating for an online game in this age, basically, I think.
Well, they're in beta, so there's still a chance for them to rectify this and listen to people. Let's hope they do, and I'll try and jump on it more this next week, but we'll see. I've just finished off the game.
I think they've been, just to finish off, I think they've been a bit sneaky. I think they knew this was going to be a sticking point, and I think
we've got the package, the game, the good game to play, and we're going to be aggressive and see what we get away with.
Yeah, I think they've chucked it out there in beta.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a beta release to me.
I was going to say,
right?
It's ready, isn't it?
It's similar to, I said this to you before, it's similar to what they did with Fortnite, where they can kind of get away with it because they go, it's all in beta.
For years.
But I think that I get a feeling, obviously they wanted to technically try it, get a bit of a flavour for what the community was saying, but I get a lot, the feeling that I get is they wanted the feedback around this progression piece, because I think they knew that was going to be the thing that would probably hit them hardest. So it's clever. It's clever from them. But I do hope, for the sake of, for my sake and for everyone else's and theirs, that they make a change, because it is an irritant.
You've got to be careful though, because what you don't want to do is be that aggressive where you're hoping people will buy skips and stuff and pay for cosmetics rather than progress, which is fine. That works, for a little while. But if you start losing people consistently buying the battle pass because they don't see value in it because it's so slow to progress, that surely is the lifeblood, is getting X amount of people to come back each season and keep doing the battle pass. You don't want people to get disillusioned with it and think, I'll just buy the odd skin for £1 when I want it, rather than just earning it. And
I think they've got the battle pass piece right. They've got everything there right. Yeah. It's just the incentive to progress through it. Either they've got to make, what they've got to do. The actual gap, the XP gap to level up, isn't that big.
Right.
The problem is that
it
takes you. Because you don't get anything for doing the games, and you're completely reliant on completing challenges. If you just want to, for example, jump on for a few games of big team battle, you might not complete any challenges.
No, and
then you don't get anything, and that's the difficulty with it. So it really does force you to play the game how the challenges are set, which is not what people want to do. But we'll see what they do over the next couple of weeks.
No, fair enough. PS5 turned 1 in the United Kingdom anyway. We got it a bit later, 19th of November, as opposed to the 12th, which is when US, Australia, and a few other zones got it. So I wanted to give a little shout out to that, give my high level kind of perspective on their first year. Pretty decent, been pleased with it. Had a lot of bad press this year though, Sony. Lots of inside the industry kind of negative headlines. Remember the first one being about Days Gone 2 being cancelled, and people were in uproar about that. And I was like, I've never seen the noise generated from a mediocre game not getting a sequel. I've never known anything like it.
I was hoping you were going to call that a mediocre game, because I didn't play it, but I know it didn't really hit the notes that a lot of people were hoping it would.
It's fine, but to cry about not getting a sequel, I'm just like, what are you guys on about? And that whole headline from Bloomberg, I think it's Jason Schreier, had a undertone of, and the suggestion was Sony only care about big blockbusters, so if you don't make your money, we're bidding you. Which is ironic, that one message seems to have set the tone for the entire year. It felt like it happened quite early, and then you see in articles and in decisions that you see played out in the public, they're like, well, they're going down this blockbuster route. I just think, I don't know if I believe that. They're building a new VR headset. That ain't a blockbuster. That's a fucking shitload of money to be squandering away. That's a whole new hardware line.
The thing is that it's like, they're a business.
Well, yeah, right? So there's that as well.
If there are games that haven't done well, it's
gone.
Like a film. Well, it's like, it's films that don't do well generally won't get a sequel.
No.
Right? games that don't do as well won't get a sequel, especially if they've got other things that they'd rather plough their money into than making sequels to games that, weren't blockbusters, for want of a better term. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with, game companies going out and going, we don't want to continue.
We just think about Halo Infinite. The reason they're doing that is to extract money. It's not.
Yeah, it's a business. Like this isn't. I don't know why people struggle with this sort of stuff. Like, this is a business that's trying to make money. They're not, they want to give a good product, but they want to give a good product to then generate more revenue. Obviously, the people that are developing it want to be proud of what they developed.
Yeah,
but really, that's the name of the game for these, right?
The catalyst of this was Days Gone 2 being cancelled, and I was like, well, it weren't very good and didn't sell very well. I don't know why you would be that offended by it. But they had more disasters. Well, not disasters, but more bad PR. We had this confusion around PlayStation 5 games coming to PlayStation 4. So they'd made that big statement prior to launch saying, right, we believe in generations, yada, yada, yada. And everyone was like, well, Phil said he's supporting Xbox through. And it's like, we're not even going to get next-gen experiences on the Xbox. And it turns out 8 out of the 10 games that Sony have been pumping out are all coming to PS4 anyway. So they had to backtrack that. Then you had the paid upgrade paths they've been doing. They had to backtrack on Horizon Forbidden West because initially they said you'd better play that for free, and then they've had to backpedal on that, etc., etc. And then the ultimate one, which has been there since day one, was the £70 price point for these first-party titles. They've decided to up that. Something like Elden Ring, which is highly anticipated for next year, $49.99 on that PlayStation store. Horizon Forbidden West, 70 UK pounds. A £20 price gap in two AAA titles. They'll probably score around the same review-wise, but in terms of quality, they're both up there. So they've had some bad headlines to deal with. Like I said, they're probably not as focused on the smaller games as what they have been, but they've clearly built up a relationship with Ember Labs to release something like Kena. That's a much smaller game that's come out and done really well. And we'll just see how they operate. But they've had a few negative headlines. In terms of the hardware, pretty good. I like the DualSense. I've really, really enjoyed that. And I think generally they've had a decent output of games. Not been incredible. Not had many of their big hitters, actually. But still, people forget that they've had a fair few games going back from the launch of this thing, that aren't appearing elsewhere. And
I think it's been a difficult. Well, it feels like it's been a difficult transition from them, from the 4 to the 5.
It's still can't get hold of it though. So all this stuff I've just reeled off, you can't get your hands on one. It's like
no.
You can, because we spoke about this before, but you absolutely can. You just got to be lucky.
If you know where to look and be patient and keep your eyes peeled, it's there. It's I like my PS5. I think that controller is excellent. I mean, when I played Astro's Playroom on it the first time, I was like, cool, what's all this it's doing? Well, yeah. I mean, I like playing that little game. I liked playing it. It's a nice little introduction game just to get you on there. I don't mind it, but I thought that controller, it feels nice. I think I don't particularly like the look of the PlayStation 5. I don't know what they were thinking when they designed that.
This is the thing. It's brute force approach, wasn't it? So we can't get this to effectively get rid of the heat. Let's just make it as big as it needs to be. And I
don't even mind the fact that it's big. It's just a weird. I don't know why they've gone to the effort. The biggest thing that baffles me is why they've gone to the effort to make it this peculiar shape, which then means they've got to give it a peculiar stand.
It don't look right on its belly, does it?
It don't look. No.
It looks laboured.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't look right, and I don't understand that. But I like the fact that they've given some of those. I can't remember what they call it now, but basically like God of War, Spider-Man, all that. You can play that for free. If you didn't play them on the PS4, you can bung them on your PS5.
Plus collection, yeah.
That's it, the collection, yeah. I thought that was a nice little thing for them to do. But I feel like they need to give a bit more back to the gamer. I think that's the one thing that Xbox is starting to do really well is make you feel like you're getting value.
Yeah,
I think that's the one thing that PlayStation are struggling with is making the user feel like they're getting value.
Yeah.
How they do that, I don't know, but
it's difficult because they don't have as deep a pockets as Microsoft,
No.
and arguably that pays dividends for the Game Pass. I mean, Phil's come out this past week and said it's sustainable. Didn't say profitable.
I don't know how.
He said we can carry on
really
doing it. Well, maybe they've just set aside saying, sustainable can mean many things. It doesn't. It just means that it can carry on in its current state. Whether that means it's losing, I don't know, 10% or whatever it is, that's not a concern. But they've got the backing to do that if they wanted to. Whereas Sony are like, well, we need these big games to hit.
We can't be giving them all away for nothing.
No, we can't. It doesn't work like that for us. So they're in a bit of a tricky position. But yeah, I mean, overall, I really like the DualSense. I've really gotten well with that. And like I said, the software library's been pretty decent. The DualSense has become more of a factor than I thought it was going to be. I just don't. There doesn't seem to be much parity in performance. Like there was with Xbox One and PS4. Like the PS4 was always better than it. And I'm less sort of interested in like, this one's got more pixels now at 400% zoom. And it's like, if it has decent haptics or adaptive trigger support, I'm more interested in playing it on the PlayStation because of that. But the first question is always, is it on Game Pass? Because that overrides it all. If it is, it goes, well,
it's because
put
it's
hands back in pocket and don't bring them out of money, so you don't need to.
Yeah, that is a problem for them.
No.
I don't know how they combat it. I really don't. I've been wondering how they, because it feels like they've got to do something. I mean, they obviously copied the PlayStation games you get every month from Xbox because Xbox started doing that. So they seem to follow suit on some stuff, but I think it's going to be really difficult for them to have such a huge library of games you can download for at tops. I think it's like £11 a month. Like it's just ludicrous value.
I still think you don't need that many games. Like, could PlayStation get away with giving you a service that had 30 games, but there were 30 great games, rather than 200 of whatever?
Well, I think if you said to me for £8 a month, you could have access, I don't know, £5, £6 a month, a small monthly fee to have access to those PlayStation Plus collector's edition, like collector's game. Yeah, I probably would have at least gone in there to play a couple of those. So you kind of think they could have done that, but whether they use that to expand on that and add some games, PS3 games. I mean, this is the thing that Xbox do really well, right? Is that they make their whole library pretty much. If you want to play any of these games, they're available. I mean, they obviously add some and take some away, and they keep it at a manageable level. But there's a whole range of games in there that you can pick up and play if you fancy it.
Yeah.
And I wonder if PlayStation could do something along those lines, but
they just added another 76 games to backwards compatibility Xbox on the 20th anniversary. So, they did say that's their last one. They've sort of drawn a line under it now, and I was like, don't say that. Like, even if you're planning to do it, don't tell people that. But that's still another huge haul. Yeah, you're right. They've got a whole, going back to the original Xbox, sort of tying the episode together, that you can play games all the way back there. The PS3 backwards for the PlayStation audience is gone. Like, it's just evaporated because the cell processor seems to be unmanageable and they can't emulate it on current stuff. But both consoles themselves this year, I mean, the huge pluses I've seen are around load times, the 60 FPS that seems to be standardized across most games. It's an option. The back catalogues play better than ever. So that's where I feel like, actually, although both consoles have that ability, the Sony side of things is far stronger because the back library of the PS4 versus the Xbox One, as we've discussed, not even close. So I can now revisit all these games that I loved and played for the last 7 years. They've patched all the big ones, most of the big ones, to 60 FPS. That makes it feel better. And I looked on Phil's side and I thought, what would I go back and play out of that? And I was like, there's nothing. There's nothing from that Xbox One generation that I'd want to go back and play. And that leads nicely into the final part, because I went back and played Horizon Zero Dawn, because they released the new unlocked frame rate 60 FPS patch for the PS5, And I thought, well, I played this game back in 2017 when it came out. I think a week and a half later, Breath of the Wild came out, and Ronnie breaknecked it. He got 60% through it, and then steamrolled the last 40% just to get it out of the way with, so he could play Zelda, which was a mistake because that wasn't even that good in my opinion. So I was always a bit aggrieved by that. And then I was waiting for this patch because I kind of knew they were going to do it. I knew eventually they were going to do it, and then lo and behold, 6 weeks ago they kind of did it. So I jumped back into Horizon. I'd not played the DLC, and it was a really pleasant experience going back and played that. 70 hours I dumped into it over the last few weeks.
I bet that looked great though.
It still looked, and they haven't done much graphically. I don't think they've actually tweaked anything. They've just made it run at 60.
But that,
and
for some reason,
still looks stunning, that game.
Yeah.
It really is. For that world, given how big it is, and the level of interactivity you have in terms of the combat, it's incredible. Really good. Like, Forbidden West is due to be out in February. This was a great primer. It was good reading some of the notes, actually, because they mentioned the Forbidden West, and you'd never pick up on it on the first playthrough because we didn't know the next game was called that. But it calls out specifically like, oh, don't be going over that side. There's people who go out there and don't be seen again. And I was like, oh, they've already been laying seeds in that no one kind of knew about. But really, really still a great game. I actually think that I definitely enjoyed it more than my first one because I wasn't breaknecking it. I really got to spend time exploring and platinumed it as well. So I've got the platinum trophy for that.
Cool.
And the new content that I played was the Frozen Wilds DLC, which isn't set after the game because the game came out, finished it, walked away. A few months later, the Frozen Wilds come along, so you kind of expect it to be set post game, but it's actually not. It's actually something you do during Aloy's sort of venture between the start and the finish, and it really slots in nicely towards that. It gives some great little extra added bits to kind of the main game in terms of story and a little bit of character development for some of the characters. But this DLC is tough. Like the machines that you take on in the Frozen Wilds they're double hard. They really are. They only introduced, I think, 3 new machines and like a tower type machine that heals them. So you kind of want to go in there, destroy the tower, and then they can't re-heal the machines around them. But the ones they've introduced, they are tough. They are really difficult. And you can see where it came out chronologically. Like, most people would have finished the game by this, so they would have been like level 50, level higher than that. And I wasn't. I went through this sort of almost as intended, canically, because it happens during a journey. And I was, I was above the level cap for most of the quests. Like, I was level 40 when I rocked up and started doing it, and the quest was like level 30, and it was still bloody hard. Like, it really tested me. But no, good little story. Some nice little side quests that build out some extra lore. Bit of a different pace. Like, a lot of the quests, be it side or main quests, take place inside buildings or structures. Which is obviously like the open world's there, but you might go to an area and then you'll go inside, I don't know, a dam or something. So it's a bit more tighter kind of combat arenas to go in. There's a new map. It's probably about 25% of the main map, and it's attached just on top of the main map. So there's no loading screens. You just climb and walk up there, and it's there. It's like this little section. Only criticism with that is that it is all snow, and that's part of like probably about 40% of the landscape in the main map. So you've kind of seen it all before. They reused the same puzzle over and over, not the solution, but the same type of puzzle. And it's one of those ones where you've got like like an energy source, and you've got a node that you can turn. It'll go that direction to another node, and you have to string the nodes together so that the light gets around and goes to a central point. And there's like nodes that have got red bits on them, etc., etc. They reused that about 4 times during the game, and I was like, this isn't in any of the main games. Someone clearly decided, I like the idea of this little puzzle. Let's bung that into all of them. But yeah, it was really good. It wasn't really good. It was decent. It was certainly difficult, like I mentioned. expands slightly. Like, no, there's a few new weapons that you can unlock and go through, but I quite like the way it just slotted into the main game so nicely. And even like later story missions will mention the events of the Frozen Wilds that weren't there first time. So that was quite interesting. And overall, as a DLC, pretty decent. You know, if you've not played it and you've played the main game, I'd say get on that. It'll test you because it's pretty difficult. But I'll give it a nice 8 out of 10.
Not bad. Yeah, I'm surprised. I saw you going back and playing that. I was thinking, what's he doing back on that? Obviously, now understanding that Ronnie needed to go back there, it makes more sense. But I didn't know you didn't play the DLC as well. So
No,
yeah, but that was. It's always nice, I think, now, like to play things in 60 FPS. Like I'd go to it and I'm like, I don't know how I've coped. It's always funny, isn't it? How your brain just resets the baseline. Like it goes, like the baseline has to be 60 now.
I'm about to test that notion because Mafia Definitive Edition is on PlayStation now, and that's queued up, ready to go now that Horizon's kind of wrapped up and the Platinum's done. That doesn't have any enhancements to the PS5 version or the Xbox Series X version. If you get that, it's 30 FPS only. So we're going to see whether that brain of mine can adapt or whether it notices it and it can't get over the fact that it's 30 on that. And it's my own fault because I lined that game up to play well before the console released, and I sandbagged and put it off. And now, a year later, I'm in this situation where I've played nothing lower than 60, and it's gonna, I would imagine, have a detrimental effect on my opinion of the game. But we'll see. Maybe I'll just be able to slot back into it and whatnot. But
I think it's doable. But I think you still sit there. I think it's always going to be in my mind now, and you know, 60 feels like the baseline of buttery smoothness. I mean, I don't know any more than that because chances are I'm not going to get it for a little while yet on these consoles. Everything seems to be baseline 60.
Some do 120, don't they? Like you can in some games switch on the 120. I don't mean it's not locked, but you can.
I've got it there available, so I'm just like, give me the maximum. Obviously, I change games to be performance, not quality as well. So I should get it if it's available. But yeah, it feels like anything lower is going to be noticeable. I think dependent on the game is whether it affects your experience or not. But I think it's always going to be one of those things that you see and you go, cool. Yeah. Wish this had 60.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, that's it. Horizon was good. Frozen Wilds were good, and I'll be looking for something else to play, likely to be Mafia and a bit of Halo. So that's where it's going to go. But I think that's it for this week. Stepped in nicely. Awesome. Overrun, but
always do.
That was to be expected, I guess. I should have just accepted that was going to happen rather than look at the clock every 5 seconds. But thanks for joining me at short notice this week because it wasn't the normal stretched out level of notice. Atkins has let himself down again, so he's going to have to back in the boardroom, back in the disciplinary meetings, and HR will have to be doing it. No unions to protect him this time, so we'll see what comes of that. But I appreciate your time.
No worries. Always a pleasure.
Excellent. Everyone that's watching or listening, as you know, you can support us by going to patreon.com/dimpdigital. That's the place where you can become a part of the community. Or you can go to twitch.tv/dimpdigital, subscribe to the channel, or if you've got Amazon Prime, you can link your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account and subscribe to that. And it's a freebie for you. For us, we get a beer, well, half a beer, quarter of a beer, the way it all translates at the end of it. So if you want to do that, feel free to. If you're a slug and you don't want to or can't afford it, fair enough. We appreciate you giving up some time to listen or watch us today, and we hope you have a good rest of the week. Nothing more for us to say here, though, other than thanks for your time and ta-da.
This was a Dimp Digital production.